What is up guys, DZ here, and welcome back to yet another discussion video about super polymerization. No, I'm just kidding. But in today's video, we are talking about the Megatin promos, and these were revealed by some Yu-Gi tubers that got the chance to go to the World Championship, and that's kind of a cool way for Konami to actually show these cards to the public. So if you remember back a couple months ago when the Megatin sort of blurb was first released, the paragraph that they put on the official website, it said that they were announcing, or they were putting in 3 new cards, 3 TCG exclusives into the tins, and they said that they'd be very, very competitive. And when we saw that, we didn't really know what they were talking about, because in the past, Konami has sometimes had a history of releasing cards like Sea Monster of Theseus, claiming that they're really, really powerful, but then when we actually read the card and play with the card, it's like, okay, this thing wasn't actually that good. However, I can safely say, and I think the sort of general consensus about these cards, is that these cards are in fact extremely powerful, and 2 of them are hand traps, and all of them are extremely good against combo strategies. And I would even go as far to say that the 2 hand traps, specifically the second one we're going to look at, are some of the most powerful hand traps, if not the most powerful hand traps ever released in the game, right up there with Max C. And the second one might even be a little bit better than Max C in some situations. It's kind of hard to tell, but just in general, these cards are so ridiculously strong. It's really cool that they're putting them in the Megatins, and I think it really will help out the format a lot. All of these cards are anti-combo cards, and that is really important, because when we looked at this last ban list, a lot of people pointed out that, hey, Thunder Dragons didn't take many hits, and hey, neither did Orcus, and that's kind of weird. But these 3 cards are so darn good that I can't help but wonder, are these going to sort of make those 2 top decks actually go to the wayside in favor of more controlling strategies? Because let me tell you that with these cards in the format, it makes people really not want to play combo decks, but that kind of creates this interesting dynamic where people are playing these cards in their side decks, so combo decks go out of favor, and then if everyone's playing control decks, people take these cards out of their side decks, but then people go back to combo decks, sort of like a back and forth. But anyway, without further ado, let's read the first card. And I will have to apologize, these pictures are very, very blurry because they're taken from a screenshot from a YouTube video, but I'm sure you guys can read them well enough. So this one is Dimension Shifter. It is a level 6 dark spellcaster monster with 1200 attack and 2200 defense, and this thing says if you have no cards in your graveyard, as a quick effect, you can send this card from your hand to the graveyard until the end of the next turn. Any card sent to the graveyard is banished instead. This is sort of like the opposite of Artifact Lancia in some ways, because Artifact Lancia is a card that you send to the graveyard from your hand, and then it prevents both players from banishing cards. This thing, on the other hand, just makes everything get banished, and that is a pretty big deal. Interestingly enough, while Lancia is good against both Thunder Dragons and Orcus, so is this card actually. I know it seems kind of weird, but in both Thunder and Orcus, while it is true that they want to banish cards, and that's why Lancia is so good, a lot of the cards they're banishing are cards that they want to be in the graveyard. I mean, this card, if you discard it, it banishes all the cards that your opponent would use during the turn, so that means you won't be able to banish stuff for the Chaos monsters like Levianeer or the baby Chaos Dragons. It also means you can't use your Orcus cards, because they need to be in the graveyard and then banish them. So overall, this card is very interesting. It's a new take on Artifact Lancia, and it will be pretty good. I think it will. One of the big downsides of this card is very similar to that of No Material. So if you remember my discussions about No Material, which is a very good card and a lot of people are side-decking it right now, the card really doesn't have any uses outside of exactly going second when you sort of are playing against a combo deck. The big problem with No Material is that you have to control no cards to activate it, and that's a pretty big drawback. This card doesn't require you to have no cards on the field, but it does require you to have no cards in the graveyard. So in most cases, I realize some decks can banish cards from the graveyard, but in a lot of cases, you just won't be able to activate this card after turn 1. But if that one turn is really, really solid, I mean, this is pretty crazy when you think about it, Macrocosmos and a hand trap, I still think this card could steal some wins, and it'll be interesting to see if people play this card or Artifact Lancia, depending on the format. And that brings us to the second card that I want to talk about that to many people is one of the best hand traps ever released, and it hasn't even come out yet, and that is the Primal Being. So this is a level 11, 3000 attack, 600 defense, rock light monster, and it has a lot of effects. Well, I guess it has one big effect that you guys need to know about, but it's a lot of text. So this thing says, during the main phase, if your opponent normal or special summon 5 or more monsters this turn, quick effect, you contribute as many face-up monsters on the field as possible, and if you do, special summon this card from your hand, then special summon 1 Primal Being token, which is a rock light level 11 monster with attack question mark, defense question mark, that basically equals all of the stats of the things that you attributed. You can only use this effect once per turn. So this thing is insane, right? It's a raw sphere mode on the opponent's turn, turn that doesn't restrict your own normal summon, sure, it gives them a huge token. And I think in a lot of cases, the token will be around 15,000 attack points. But the fact of the matter is that if you're getting rid of a ton of negations on your opponent's side of the field, if you're getting rid of all these cards that would stop your cards, probably won't care about giving your opponent a big beater because it has no negation effects. It has no protection effects. You can just bounce it or destroy it or steal it or whatever. It's not really that big of a deal. Worth mentioning though, unlike Raw Sphere Mode, unlike Kaiju's, unlike Lava Golem, unlike all those types of cards, this card does not tribute the monsters as cost. It is one effect. And that matters because it means if your opponent, for example, is like almost done with their Guard Dragon combo and they activate Agripain, you don't use this card. If your opponent brings out like Crystal Wing Synchro Dragon, well, now you've sort of missed your opportunity because they just negate it in their hand. Worth mentioning though, of course, if your opponent doesn't know that you have this card and they don't summon the Crystal Wing, or if they're not playing the Crystal Wing, then you can just wipe out their entire field basically at the end of their combo, and they'll probably be pretty sad. This card comes at an interesting time though, right? We just got Super Polymerization back to 3 copies per deck, and this card kind of does the same thing. Raw Sphere Mode is also an option, but this thing seems a lot better than both of those cards and a lot more versatile. You know, you don't have to play a Super Poly target in your extra deck. You can just summon this thing. Maybe there'll be combo decks out there that only summon 4 times, but I don't really think that counts as a combo deck at that point. I mean, pretty much every combo deck is summoning way more than 4 times per turn. One potential counter to this card is that if there's a combo deck that can summon Azathoth with less than 5 summons, that will definitely shut this card down as well as any other hand trap. So definitely watch out for that. If there's a combo deck that can do that and also continue its plays, that'll be a pretty big deal against this card if it becomes popular. 5 times is not that many times, especially when it considers the normal summon as well. It's just 1 normal summon and then 4 special summons, 4 or more special summons, and that's really not that much in the grand scheme of things. Possibly one of the biggest benefits of this card is you don't have to use it right when your opponent summons the 5th monster. You can wait until the very end of the combo and then wipe out their entire board. I think the chances of all the cards in this tin seeing play are pretty high, but especially this one. This card is just way too powerful. It is way too good against combo decks, and combo decks are so popular right now. This card absolutely will be played, and it'll be interesting to see how many copies people play and if combo decks sort of go away just because of how good this card is. And that brings us to the final card that we're going to talk about, and it's not a hand trap. It is a normal spell card, and it's called Dark Ruler No More. And this card's kind of interesting, right? Because I think it's getting overshadowed by the big hand trap that we just talked about, but it actually is really powerful. This card says negate the effects of all face-up monsters your opponent currently controls until the end of his turn. Also, for the rest of this turn, after this card resolves, your opponent takes no damage. And then lastly, neither player can activate monster effects in response to this card's activation. So I've seen a lot of people comparing this card to Mystic Mine, and that makes sense, but it's sort of like Mystic Mine plus Cold Wave, because it's just a 1-turn stun. Also keep in mind this thing only negates monsters on your opponent's side of the field that are currently out there. So if they sort of add a new monster to the field, this won't negate that. It also won't negate hand traps or anything in the graveyard, so it's only face-up monsters, and obviously that's pretty strong, right? If you would use this against a full Thunderboard, I mean, just in case you didn't draw the hand trap that tributes their entire field, maybe they still have some monsters out there. They have the Hot Red, they have the Crystal Wing, they have the Colossus. Well, you can just activate Dark Ruler No More, and it negates everything for the entire turn. Sure, there is a quote-unquote drawback where your opponent takes no damage, but we all kind of know that life points don't matter. It's all about board control and card advantage and tempo. So having a card out there that you can just blank those entire boards is pretty nutty when you already consider there's Super Poly to out them and this new hand trap to out them and a bunch of other hand traps to stop them from making it in the first place. There's so many different ways that you can just disrupt combo decks. It's just kind of crazy. Interestingly enough, sort of like the other cards we've talked about, this thing is really bad in a format where there's not many combo decks, or in formats where the combo decks aren't always just ending on monster cards. Interestingly enough, this card isn't that great against decks like Orcust, and I know that Orcust are a combo deck and they put out a pretty scary board, but that board a lot of times has a counter trap and it has cards in the graveyard like Skeleton and Dingirsu, and those types of cards won't be affected by this. This card is very specifically good against decks like Thunder Dragons that are making a huge board, and that sort of is their entire play. They don't have a lot of cards left in hand, they don't have a lot of cards left in graveyard, and I know I keep bringing up Thunder Dragons, but that really does seem like what these 3 cards are specifically tailored against. It really is interesting looking back at that ban list and everyone's reaction saying, well, Thunder Dragons are going to be the best deck, and it'll be interesting to see if they actually end up being really good even over the course of the next couple weeks before these cards come out. These things will not be out for the UDS, they will not be out for YCS Portland, they will be out for a lot of the regionals, and they'll be out for YCS Niagara Falls, but overall we still have 2 pretty big events before these cards come out, so I feel like a lot of Thunder Dragon players are going to be trying to get the most mileage before they just get anti-comboed by all of these new hand traps and this specific spell card. It's worth noting that Konami did an excellent job in actually producing these cards and how they actually made them good against the current meta, because let's be honest guys, this could have been another Sea Monster of Theseus situation. These cards could have been so much worse, they could have been jokes, and that definitely would have underwhelmed a lot of people for the Megatons. But I think with these cards and the rest of the cards in the Megatons, people are really excited, and I think it's sort of a cool idea to make it a different promo for each tin, so that when you open multiple tins, it's not so boring, because a lot of times the Megatons, like, you know what you're getting in the promo cards, and there's so many of them, you're like, oh, there's no like excitement there. So actually making it a random chance to get any one of these cards is pretty cool. I like that a lot. But anyway, let me know in the comment section below what you guys think about these new promo cards. Like I said, I think most people believe these cards are insane, but I'd love to hear your feedback or maybe some other applications that I missed in this initial reaction video. I'll see you later though. Thank you so much for watching. Goodbye.